Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. So in this one, it's the breakdown for game week 8 on how my team got on and just in general some thoughts about how the game week was overall. Normally in this series, I do 5 key points or takeaways from an eye test perspective for the week. But instead, as this is of course now an international break, a lot of managers didn't use their wildcard this week and are considering a wildcard for game week 9. I thought maybe I'd do some tinkering as kind of the second half of the video. So let's jump into the team first of all on how they done. So yeah, very happy overall. Scored 62 points, 58 with that -4. So I had 2 free transfers going into game week 8, which was one of the reasons really why I didn't want to wildcard, as with the game week 7 being postponed and having that transfer carry over, I felt like I could get to a decent 11 playing players with just that one hit. So I did Sanchez to Pope, Trent to Cancelo and Salah to Bowen. They were the 3 moves that I made. Of course, they weren't maybe the perfect moves, but they were ones that made sense to me, and still overall I felt like I came out on top. It did result this week in an actual green arrow for me, which I was very surprised at. I'm currently ranked just closer maybe to 1.2 million than 1.1, but it's still over a 200k green arrow for me after not pushing that wild card. So for me, I'm very happy with the output. Overall, it's like I say, left me in a very good position. I think post-international break, we'll be able to take as much information as we can from those games, as well as reacting to any injuries that may occur over that time, and building a squad ultimately that's as strong as possible, right up until that World Cup break in game week 16. So very happy with the position that I'm in. I hope that, of course, any advice I've given over these past few videos has put yourselves in strong positions as well. But yeah, let's go from the nets to the strikers then. So starting off in goal was Nick Pope. Of course, I had a blank goalkeeper other than Ward, but I just wasn't interested in playing Ward. So really one of the free transfers that I made straight away was Sanchez to Pope ahead of this Bournemouth fixture. Unfortunately, it did result in a conceded goal and no save points for him. So one of the lowest scores he's scored for the season, but still happy that he scored some kind of points. Trent to Cancelo meant a 9-pointer rather than, again, 0, as Kyle Walker wasn't a bench option for me, as he was flagged as injured, of course. So scoring those 9 points after not having any attacking return, just that clean sheet, and essentially just shows you how well he performs in that kind of midfield. Let's face it, he isn't a defender. He plays midfield in so many of these games. The touches, the passes, and everything that he does on the pitch just racks up that bonus point system for him. And he gets the 9 pointers without any attacking returns on a regular basis. So very happy to now own him moving forward. Gabriel coming in next with the 6 points. Nico Williams with the 1 point, and Kieran Trippier with that all-important assist, bringing in 5 points. So happy with the back line overall. I think Gabriel, of course, he could have been a different option. I could have gone with Saliba back when I did move for Gabriel, or an Arsenal defender in general. So slightly, coin flip, let's say, the wrong side of that. But in all fairness, I still think that having him as an asset was a great option, moving all the way through into this game week 9 wildcard. Nico, I kind of expected a conceded goal at least. Maybe attacking return would have been nice, but to come away with at least 1 point from him, I'm not too fussed. And again, that Trippier assist was proved very important for the rank, of course. So very happy to own him. Bowen was probably the disappointment really of the week for me, as I was very close to bringing in Heung-min Son, but with news of him being benched, it just, in FPL, the simple fact is there will be people that win that gamble from time to time. But again, I use the word variance. I tend to try and stay away from it in the videos as best I can, but it's so difficult to not talk about it because this doesn't happen every week. It was a 15-minute hat-trick. He come off the bench. It doesn't happen on a regular basis. So yes, it could have been a move that essentially catapulted me into the top, maybe 800k, maybe even as far as 700k, but I'm still very happy that I went for the fixtures with Bowen over that Son pick that was, in my opinion, the riskier option of the two, right? So didn't turn out in terms of the points, but I was still happy from an eye test perspective on his performance. It just, West Ham as a team just don't seem to be ticking, or I think David Moyes used the word rhythm. It's just not quite there yet for them, and I don't know if the European fixtures with David Moyes having such a small squad is really starting to affect them. But it's time will tell. He's in the team and in the wildcard draft for now, but he'll definitely one that I'll keep a close eye on after transferring him in. Of course, this man next, Saka, very, very close now to matching Martinelli's output as a player. I think he's done phenomenally well, to be honest, in recent weeks. I think he needed a bit of confidence. The start of the season wasn't too great for him. Martinelli for sure was the better option to begin with, and arguably maybe still is based on his price point, right? He's 1.2, 1.3 million cheaper than Saka, so I still think maybe he wins out of that kind of, duet or duel between the two picks, but still very happy that he got me those returns. Again, probably helping and assisting the green arrow from that non-wildcard position, right? So very happy to own him. Andreas only scoring that 1 point. I think unfortunate in terms of 3 Fulham goals. If from an FPL standpoint, I think most managers have either him or Mitrovic as the attacking threat for Fulham, and both of them blanked essentially. So I don't think we're going to see much of that happen regularly. Palhinha definitely does look like a fantastic asset. Would I choose him though over Mitrovic or Andreas? Probably not. Andreas is still, in my opinion, the best budget enabler, and Mitrovic being on penalties and his goal scoring rate at present, I still think he's the better option of the 3 of them there. So ultimately, it's just, again, the word variance comes into play. I don't think we're going to see throughout this season, if Fulham manage to put 3 goals in the net of any opposition, it's going to be unlikely that we don't see returns from either of them. So a little bit disappointed he only scored the 1 point, but it's still a point and a playing player this week during that blank game week, right? So still happy he registered something. Moving into the front 3 then, Jesus scoring and doing a little bit of damage maybe to those wildcarders that chose Mitrovic over him. Unfortunately picked up a yellow card, resulting in 1 less bonus and obviously a -1 for the yellow. So could have scored me a few extra points, which would have been nice. Potentially would have changed the rank only slightly, but enough to move me maybe closer to that 1 million mark. And of course, Erling Haaland coming in with a goal, arguably probably one of his weaker goals that he's scored in terms of an eye test perspective. A little bit of a scuff shot. Wolves gave him a little bit too much time, to be honest, on the ball. And obviously done what Haaland does best, really, and again scoring a goal. So obviously we lost in terms of the Kane versus Haaland decision, but I didn't have the money or the way to move to Kane realistically. I didn't want to get rid of Jesus, so I did have the money, but I would have had to have taken, I think, even a -8 to get there. But wasn't happy to do that. So Jesus returning and Haaland returning pretty much kind of nullified Kane's return, right? Even after that captaincy. And of course, this man, Isak, very, very happy that he's finally registered a return. As lucky as I feel like it was a definite penalty. Do I think he was nailed to be on penalties? Not really. It was a bit of a gamble maybe going for him. He didn't look from an eye test perspective as on it, really, to be honest, as he did against Liverpool and Crystal Palace. His expected goals were definitely a lot lower in this match. But again, comes away with a 9-pointer. So I'm very, very happy that he's done that. And I may even consider keeping him in the wild card over Mitrovic for a couple of weeks and maybe move to Mitrovic in later weeks, as we'll see shortly. And then finally, to touch on the bench, of course, yes, Danny Ward scoring 0. It's been an absolute abysmal show from Leicester. I don't think they actually played too bad as a squad in that first half against Spurs, but they're still conceding goals, and maybe it's time for Iverson to step in. Who knows? But Ward, unfortunate if you had to play him, scoring those 0 points. And of course, Kyle Walker as well, 0 points. Was registered as injured, didn't play any minutes. He essentially, if he wasn't injured, maybe I wouldn't have taken a -4. I would have maybe played him instead of Salah and gone with a 5-2-3 formation, and he would have scored maybe a basic 6 points. But again, this is small differences that of course it's ifs, buts and maybes, right? He didn't play, didn't feature, so no bench headaches for me this week. And of course, Rodrigo and Gross both blanking this week. So like I say, that's the team. It's resulted in 58 points all out with that -4. And a green arrow overall. So let me know in the comments below how you got on. Like I say, I hope that you did as well as I did, especially if you didn't use that wild card. I think it's so important that now we can start looking from a front foot perspective. Following this international break, we can really start shaping our teams to push further up that rank tree. I'm very happy with the position that I've left myself in, to be honest, after game week 8. So like I said in the introduction, I'm going to be using Plan FPL as a bit of a kind of let's say method to showcase the wild card on where my thoughts currently are and how the team would shape up moving through the next few weeks. Now, I have actually made transfer plans or opportunities all the way up until game week 16. I'll talk through a little bit of the reason why. Of course, I don't like to book in transfers. It's just essentially when you're building a wild card, you do want to hold on. Well, essentially, you don't want to hold on. You want to look for players to hold for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and you need to build a squad around that. So up until at least game week 13, I would say it's important to make sure you're building a squad for that time frame. And I feel like this kind of covers that in many ways, right? So maybe the first standout option that you'll see here is that there is no Mohamed Salah, or essentially a second, arguably premium. There is Sterling in there at 10 million, the closest essentially to the likes of Salah or a 12 million like De Bruyne. It's only Haaland that's taking the front and centre stage here in terms of a premium pick. And I do like the structure of the team overall so far. So I've left myself a little bit of leverage with the 0.4 in the bank. I have put Iverson ahead of Guaita in goal just because I think if he starts and gets the nod, there's a couple of reasons really. One, it's Forest, and I think that's a favourable fixture for them. It is at home as well. Notoriously, as we've seen with Begovic, what happens is when a second choice goalkeeper comes in for the first time, especially if they rack a few save points up and they get a clean sheet in a relatively low scoring game, the goalkeepers that don't play much tend to actually rank quite highly on the bonus point system, which ends up meaning 3 bonus points. So my anticipation is it's worth taking the gamble of the 0.1 million less for Iverson to try and get a nod, essentially ahead of Danny Ward. Hopefully he keeps a clean sheet and gets bonus points. And if he doesn't play at all, then Guaita comes in and probably scores me 2 points against an unfavourable Chelsea fixture. But after that, Guaita's fixtures look favourable. So that's why that's in place. I've also got the double up with James Justin, as he ultimately fits in terms of game week 9, game week 11, game week 12 and game week 13. So I'll be playing him in 4 of those game weeks. And as a budget option, he kind of, from a fixture perspective at least, Leicester actually looked like the better option for me. So, and it's worth noting as well, James Justin is an active FPL manager. So I don't think that should always kind of factor into our decision making. But there is argument that maybe he does better on the pitch because he's backs himself as a player, right, in FPL. Now, they shouldn't do that, of course. They should be doing their job and performing regardless of whether they've chosen themselves in fantasy. But maybe something to bear in mind. So I like that as an option. And of course, going without Mo Salah is again another really kind of interesting talking point for me, because Luis Diaz, I didn't back him, to be honest, at the beginning of the season. I felt like maybe he was a little bit overrated in terms of the positions he got himself in. I wasn't thinking that he was going to be that damaging. But actually after, I know it was only Bournemouth, but after those kind of like poacher-esque areas that he gets himself into, and much like Diogo Jota, I think, to be honest, he's worth taking the punt on that 5 million cheaper option at 8.2, potentially as a Liverpool attacking asset. He kind of matches what Salah does. So I feel like he might be the better option here. It allows funds to be spread across the whole squad a little bit better. Sterling comes in to play here as well, as I do like the look of Chelsea's fixtures. He's one that maybe could be shifted around a little bit. Maybe Mo Salah does come in and I drop maybe down to a cheaper midfielder instead of Luis Diaz. But really, you see the structure here does look quite good. So let's go into game week 10, 11 and 12, just so you can see over the next few weeks here what the planning is and why the structure of the team looks like this as it is now. So if we go to game week 10, as mentioned, we put Guaita in goal essentially ahead of this run of Leeds, Leicester, Wolves and Everton's, which is very, very favourable. We bring Cancelo back in after essentially he could play against Man United over James Justin, of course. I could put him in. I just think that there's goals in that game and maybe Cancelo gets an attacking return, but essentially that's why I'm backing Justin over Cancelo in game week 9. So he comes back in game week 10 against the favourable Southampton fixture. James against Wolves, Trippier against Brentford. So no issues there in the back line. I would have James Justin against Bournemouth as backup and Nico Williams against Aston Villa, so I don't really mind that. And then if you look at that midfield, Luis Diaz, of course, on paper, maybe a little bit of a difficult fixture against Arsenal, but I imagine that to be quite an open game. Arsenal obviously love at the moment to attack. They're looking very, very good. But as we saw with Manchester United, when that happens, teams that are good at breaking with fast-paced wingers, essentially the likes of Diaz, the likes of Salah, could potentially do some damage against Arsenal. So I like that fixture anyway for him. We've then got Bowen against Fulham, Maddison against Bournemouth, and Sterling against Wolves. So very happy with that midfield. And then with the front three, Isak, Haaland and Toney against Brentford, Southampton and Newcastle respectively. So very, very happy with the squad and pretty much guaranteed to roll in game week 10, which is really what you want to do. You wouldn't want to wildcard in game week 9 and then force yourself into a move in game week 10. You at least want to be planning for 2 to 3 weeks with that wildcard. So that allows me to roll the transfer in 10. Moving into 11 then next up, again, there's only really a couple of tricky fixtures here on paper with City and Liverpool playing each other. I've got Cancelo, Haaland and Diaz here. But realistically, I've got cover again. If I feel like there's something that could happen or a problem essentially with any of these individuals, I've got Nico Williams against Wolves or Trippier against Man United to bring on instead of Cancelo, for example. I have Andreas to play against Bournemouth, which again is maybe a better fixture. But because these teams are vying for essentially the top spots in the Premier League, I imagine them to be quite open games, which is why I would probably back Luis Diaz still over Andreas. And of course, we know Cancelo's output. Of course, I didn't back him against United, but I think maybe I wouldn't back Trippier or Williams to do better than him, which is why he features in the team there. So the one transfer I would make here is Isak to Mitrovic. So I've gone with a little few week break there because, of course, it's unfavourable fixtures for Newcastle. As you can see under Trippier, it's United, Everton, Tottenham, Villa. They do have very, very good fixtures in game week 12 and 14 there. Everton and Villa are probably arguably very good, or you could argue are good, but Fulham have better ones in 11 and 13 as well. So Bournemouth, Villa, Leeds and Everton. They play Everton and Villa just swapped round, but they also have them Bournemouth and Leeds in between. So I just think that that's an obvious move. He could actually be 7 million at this point. So again, 0.5 in the bank. There's flexibility here with this draft and it allows an easy move into Mitrovic. And if we go as far as game week 12 now, you can see where I didn't go with Zaha, who again is maybe a bit of a popular pick across those game weeks. So if you have a look against Leeds, Leicester and Wolves, essentially Bowen could become him at any point anyway. But against Fulham and Southampton, I've said maybe that he does something still. So I'm not booking in that transfer, but it's available if I want it. And then I've said maybe game week 12 when West Ham play Liverpool, that would be the time to move for Zaha. So that allows me then a Wolves, Everton, Southampton and West Ham fixture in the next 4 up to game week 16, which looks very, very good. So again, we're talking about booking in transfers here and there, but realistically, this is what I consider a pretty solid plan. I've put into place only essentially 2 City assets to worry about by this point. There's no Arsenal in the squad as well, which may again bite me a little bit, but realistically it allows me for that flexibility and not having to think about, right, I need at least 2 free transfers for game week 12 because of the amount of assets I've got that are now blanking, right? So I don't mind keeping the value in these 2 individuals on the bench here in Cancelo and Haaland, and then essentially moving further. And as I say, I've gone all the way into game week 16. We won't discuss each move, but here I've gone with Trent instead of Reece James. I've then moved in Rashford in game week 14 when the fixture swing happens for Manchester United. I think I moved out Maddison here when he plays Manchester City, so I've then moved down to Rashford instead, again freeing up a little bit more money. Then moving into game week 15, I've decided that Mitrovic against Man City and Man United in 15 and 16 aren't very good, but Solanke against Leeds and Everton look favourable, so again freeing up some money, which then into game week 16 allows for potentially a few more, let's say 1 week punts going into that international change, right? So I've gone with Darwin as maybe he starts hitting for Liverpool and just looks good, and he's a good option instead of Ivan Toney here as they're playing Manchester City that week. And then I've gone with Diogo Dalot for Manchester United against Fulham. So I think arguably again on paper all these fixtures look great. The plans obviously, all of this is no hits between game weeks 9 and 16, but like I say, I wanted to plan that far ahead so I can structure the squad as best possible for the wildcard, really. So the next stage really for me, guys, is to, of course, catch any price rises moving into it over the next few weeks. But I'm pretty confident now. I'm 99% sure that I'm going to be wildcarding, as I really like this squad. 8 out of 15 players would have been changed in this squad, as you can see here. And yeah, very, very happy with this draft. So let me know your thoughts below, guys, on what you think about the draft. What did you like about the structure of this video as well? Do you prefer that kind of tinkering session as opposed to just eye tests? Hopefully this helps you dissect what you might do as well for game week 9 and beyond. So let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments. Of course, if you're new to the channel, then please don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button to be notified of all the future content coming this season. And of course, if you enjoyed the content, then smash that like button below. But thank you very much again, as always, for watching the content, and I will see you in the next video.